Hi, I'm Shaka Hislop, and you're here at Extra Time TV.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Extra Time TV. This is Andre Soklal, and we're going to have a shorter episode today because the match tomorrow against Saudi Arabia, Trinidad Tobago will take on Saudi Arabia, and the Gold Cup is going to take place. I'm going to upload the pre-match press conference at Dwight, Yorke as soon as I get a chance. I'm alone on the set today, because the other guys couldn't make it right now. But I'm just going to run through a few scenarios really quickly before we get to that. So we do have a chance to get to the next round, and I'm going to break it down as quickly as I can. So as it stands, folks, USA has 6 points with a goal difference of +6. Saudi Arabia has 3 points with a goal difference of +1. Haiti, points 1, -1. That's the one they got against us. And Trinidad and Tobago 1, goal difference -5. So I'm going to break it down. I got some help from Sofascore, and I spoke to my people. We figured it out. There's a lot of scenarios, but this is the one that will help us win. So obviously the final fixtures, Trinidad and Tobago take on Saudi Arabia, USA take on Haiti, and I made sure and put my notes together so I get this right. So in terms for us to win, Trinidad and Tobago's only path to qualification is that we must defeat Saudi Arabia. Trinidad will end up with 4 points and qualify in second place behind USA. They will finish above Saudi Arabia and Haiti. So that's, so far, that's what we need to do to make it. The scenarios that eliminate Trinidad and Tobago, a draw or a loss against Saudi Arabia, TNT finishes therefore with only 2 or 1 point. Saudi Arabia would end with 3 or 4 points, and Haiti could reach 4. And in that scenario, TT cannot finish in the top 2. And of course, there's the tiebreaker rules: points, goal difference, goal scored, head-to-head, fair play points, and drawing of lots. TNT's current goal difference is -5, which makes tiebreakers virtually impossible in this scenario. So conceding those goal difference does matter, folks. So the bottom line is, it's win or go home for Trinidad and Tobago. Dwight Yorke must face the team and must win. He has to win. There is no other scenario. Now, we also, if you want to see a little bit more explanation for this, you could head over to our website, extvmedia.com, where we have a lot of insightful things. It's not about news and we just post generic news, but it's our thoughts brought to you by Sofascore. So it's not just, generic things. We can do a lot of research into what we're talking about, and Trinidad and Tobago's football, cricket, for those of you into cricket, esports, we do get some insight. And Sofascore, who's a global company, I like to say a special thank you to them, have been nice enough to provide us, not nice enough, we negotiated, but a beautiful deal where they give us this wonderful data, and we'll try to use it in the watch along, which has been great, folks. I really appreciated the feedback, and because of you all, I'll be doing another one. So look out for that. So let's head straight into the game, folks. So we take on Saudi Arabia. As it stands, we only have 1 point, and I read out the scenarios for us to win. I'm not going to go into too much details because, usually we bounce off of each other when I have guests. But in this particular case, we do have a chance. I said that repeatedly. And, let's take a look at Saudi Arabia. All right, let's take a look at Saudi Arabia. So I got some official reports from Concacaf and Sofascore. So Saudi Arabia is a team that a lot of people speak about because of their victory against Argentina, and rightfully so. I mean, Argentina are one of the world powers. They're the current world champions. When they entered into the World Cup, they were looking like they were favorites. So that was definitely a good result. They played really well. They showed a lot of character. That was a game that was not going in their favor, and they turned it around. But to be fair to Saudi Arabia and their team and their coach, who's great, by the way, they're a team that's good in their own right. And I think they deserve to be here. I think it's a country that's investing a lot of money in their football. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and it's showing with the results. They are producing top players. So in the game against Haiti, they played 4-2-3-1. That's a formation that they like. They're very physical. They're very fast. And to be fair, against that game against Haiti, they were in some cases outplayed. I was very impressed with Haiti in that particular game, where Haiti was able to physically outmuscle them. Haiti was very composed on the ball. Saudi Arabia did not have their best game, but in the end, eventually they won. And at the end of the day, the romantics in us would love to see beautiful football and victories. However, sometimes that's why this game is well loved and causes a lot of discussions with people, because it's all about preferences. It's the tactics. Win ugly, win pretty. At the end of the day, depending on who you ask, a win is a win. And Saudi Arabia faces us next. So in our last 2 games, Trinidad and Tobago played, a 4-4-2, and in the first game we played 5 at the back, which from my perspective, and what Kenwin and I were saying, and Andre as well, it made sense. I think I understood what they were talking about. And if you'd like to see Kenwin's insight into the last game, you'll see, we'll put a link up here. You can click up here on your phones or wherever you are, and you can see that, or head over to extvmedia.com or YouTube channel and just take a look at what Kenwin had to say. Once again, I really appreciate the support that we've been getting, and it really helps the channel. And we'll be doing a watch along, which was highly successful, by the way, and I did it because you all asked me to, and I really appreciated the support, and it really helps the channel. So like, subscribe, comment. We try to answer every question. So like I said, I broke it down. Folks, even while I'm saying this, let me know what you think in the comment section if Trinidad is going to win tomorrow. Back to the tactics. So in the first game against USA, we conceded 5 goals. We played 5 at the back. Alvin Jones has played as a makeshift centre-back. Cardinez and these guys is clearly being used in a wing-back position. Sheldon Bato, Marvin Phillip was amazing. But we saw what happened in the USA game. Then there was a tactical adjustment, and what I saw, and to be fair to Dwight Yorke, and we'll be posting up his pre-match conference soon, so look out for that as well on this channel. He's very forthright, and I think that's refreshing. I think he's very honest. He doesn't deflect. He doesn't throw players under the bus, which I'm very impressed with. He is able to point things out, and this is where his experience comes in. Point out the errors and be honest. And to be fair, I think it is an uphill task. He has a short period of time to get this right. International football, folks, is very different. I've said this multiple times. Sometimes, and the reason why I say this, I see this from both sides of the coin. I have been a fan, like everybody else, since I was a kid, with Trinidad Tobago and Argentina, of course, but football in general. And I understand the frustration and the emotions. A game doesn't go your way. Get rid of this player, get rid of that player. But I've also been on the other side. I've worked with professional teams, club teams, internationally and locally. I've worked with the national team, around the national team, and I was on the women's staff for the women's team. I'm not bringing that up just to say those things to, say who I am, but I was able I was fortuitous and fortunate enough to be blessed enough to see both sides and understand both sides of the dilemma, the problems that people have behind the scenes, the coaches have behind the scenes, the logistics, the problems that maybe casual fans don't understand. And the reason why I bring that up, my job is to try to bring some insight that bridges that gap. So, I could communicate with you all, hear your thoughts, and give my best insight possible. And when possible, I bring in people like Kenwin Jones. And, on the show in the past, we had Shaka Hislop. And, there's so much dynamics, and we'll be having some podcasts specifically for those things, longer form with full interaction. And that's all because of you all. You all have been tremendously supportive. The reason why I bring that up, international football, I've said this multiple times, is not like club football. You do not see the players every day. You do not get to train with the players every day. So it's very important how you communicate your ideas to the players. You only have a small window when those players flying from their clubs in international breaks, friendlies or otherwise. It's usually just a couple hours. There's a lot of flying. There's a lot of moving around. There's a lot of, mostly you have a couple meetings and a couple training sessions. And you have to be so effective and try to transmit your ideas to these players. And of course, depending on your scouting network and the communication with clubs and the period of time, it's very difficult to transmit your ideas. Now, I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to tell you how it works sometimes. And I think it's fortuitous. I said it in all the videos before that we had the Unity Cup, World Cup qualifiers, and these games. And I think it serves. It's a blessing in disguise because Dwight Yorke gets to work with these players with a bit of a frequency that was not possible maybe with the other coaches. You would get friendlies. Under normal circumstances, we'd probably get a couple friendlies before the next qualifiers if we were lucky. So we're getting this tournament and high quality opposition. So, we're going to have to see, and we'll ask him at some point, what the opposition is going to be like and, what his plan is. And, hopefully it works. We all want to get to the World Cup. That's the one. But we also want to do well in these tournaments. We want to leave on a high. So back to the game now. The reason why I brought that up, after the loss against USA, we all saw it. We all saw what took place. You could see he used a 4-4-2 formation. Alvin Jones didn't play there. He played Cardinez right back. There was Garcia, Bato, and then what I would describe as a workman-like midfield because with Rampersad and so on. Because I love Rampersad. I think he's very good. I think I understand tactically what they were trying to do. They were trying to do some damage control after the last game, and I understand psychologically there was. Anybody who's played any kind of football and you concede some goals, it does shake you. So I think the first order of business, and Dwight Yorke was very forthright about this, was to not concede goals And I did think that they did suffer from a little bit of a fear/paralysis of not wanting to lose. And I think that's what took place. And he said it. Kenwin said it in his post-match interview, post-match reaction with us, which you could check out as well when you click up there, which was very insightful because he's been there. And, speaking to other coaches, offline, getting their insight. But in this particular case, I think he was spot on, and we were in total agreement. And I think he sees these things, folks. I think he does. And I think, trying to fix those things is not as simple as going in a training session and saying, hey, stop that. I think there's a mental aspect that people don't talk about enough. And I think the players definitely, even with one player advantage, they definitely were in a little bit of the let's try not to lose. And the confidence and not wanting to make mistakes, which is what he said, was that problem. So, as a fan looking at it, it would be frustrating. That was 3 points I think we could have gotten. And in the end, I think when Kevin Molino came on, his experience and his ability to, as Kenwin said, to give confidence to the other players, to give him that ball so he could get in between the lines and create spaces with Cardinez and I don't know why his name is slipping me right now, Spicer, and those guys to get in on the wings. And I think, that should give us some positives coming out of that game. I mean, we should have won. We were a bit unlucky. We hit the post. I mean, we were fortunate. The penalty went over the bar. So, those are things I'm sure they would look at and, try to instill some self-belief in these players. Heading into the Saudi Arabia game, when the initial groups were drawn, I always said the tough groups in this was, in my ranking, USA, Saudi Arabia, and Haiti as well. No disrespect to Haiti. I knew they were going to be a tough opponent. They have always been tough. And Saudi Arabia, as we said before, we're going to head into this game with confidence. They play in a very athletic, fast way. I know that's a very generic thing to say, but that's how they do play. They're very talented players. Even though I don't think they were at their best, I think on paper at least, and this is not me being negative, I think, they do have a edge coming in. However, I'm hoping that game against Haiti may have given the defense a little bit more confidence. However, we still do make mistakes. We do a lot of turnovers. One of my biggest concerns was, and Yorke mentioned this is not anything new to anybody who has been watching the game. We did have a lot of unforced errors where we were not being pressured, but there were some passes that were given away a little bit too. There was a lack of calm, trying to attack. There were a bit, some long passes, some low percentage completions where before Molino came in, they were just kind of trying to go out wide and they were losing the ball and giving Haiti chances. And that shouldn't be the case. We have players who are technically good and they can pass the ball around. And, that on-field game management is something you get with experience when you play with each other. And that's basic football. I think they could definitely do that. They do it for their clubs. And it's all about, and these are the little dynamics in the game. So, against Saudi Arabia, it's going to be a different ball game. We're going to have to find that confidence to get rid of, the fear factor that has been holding us back. Not just the fear factor, but that thing that Yorke spoke about where they were afraid of making mistakes. They're going to have to go into this game and play without fear. Be careful, not reckless, but go into the game and, do your thing. And I think I'm not too sure tactically what formation they're going to come with in this particular game. He has been trying different formations. I think he could still stick, I'm going to guess, maybe with the 4-4-2 or maybe a 4-4-3-3 to maybe neutralize the midfield, but also be a bit potent. But I think, strengthening the defense is something they clearly, I think they're working on. And I think Haiti is a very physically strong team and we were able to do a pretty good job, not perfect, of stifling them a little bit. And, if we could have that sort of discipline and also the confidence to take our moments with confidence. And I use that word because even when Levi, he was not getting much service in the first half in the other game, when he did get the ball, because of his experience, he was able to take on players and force that red card. And, I think, obviously there's possibly an injury to Molino. Maybe that's why he's not starting. But, having him on the team, even if, he can't start, he definitely makes a difference. And then we have to figure out in the midfield who is going to be that player if Molino's injured, to be that creative player who could slow things down, pick things up, control the pace of the game, slow things down. We need players like that. And, I'm hoping that they'll learn from that game and have some confidence how to press when we lose possession. So it's going to be a difficult game, folks. I think he should come out with a similar formation that's, very solid at the back. Don't try too hard to just be reckless and go for goals. Try to contain without too much fear, not concede early. We do have a tendency to concede early against Saudi Arabia, and they're going to probably try to put pressure on us from the very beginning to withstand that storm and then control the ball better. That's easier said than done, folks. Trust me. Even at the recreational level, it's difficult to just hold on to the ball. We all love that possession football, but we have to be able to protect the ball better and be a bit more precise in how we do things. And, that comes with time. So, to me, that's how we should line up. Of course, we could talk about it all we want. Football is not played on paper. We could speculate as much as we want. Saudi Arabia are favorites on paper. But I think I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think we had a chance. We mathematically had a chance. I explained that at the beginning of the video. Folks, let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Head over to EXTVmedia.com. We'll be doing our reaction after the game. We'll probably have Andre back and Kenwin as well. And whoever else, who's available at the time because of the time zones. And we'll see. So let me know what you think. I think, realistically, the analyst in me says that this is going to be a victory for Saudi Arabia. If they score full, there's so much dynamics, and if I go through all the dynamics, I'll take forever to explain what's going on. But I think, Saudi Arabia could capitalize on the tension we have on the team. But at the same time, we should go there with no fear. We should go there with no fear and approach the game with confidence and not, desperation. However, of course, if the game goes along and we're 1-0 down, I would like to see the team, have a reaction and go down fighting. I wouldn't like to see a case where we just kind of lose and we go out on a whimper. I would be very okay in a scenario if, which is more than likely, and I say this with all due respect, this is from an analytical perspective. If we lose, we come out with a lot of positives and we learn. Of course, Dwight Yorke, I'm sure he's a competitor. I'm the kind of guy I don't try to go do anything trying to lose. I'm sure he's the same way. So I think, if there's a chance, go for it. Show courage, guys. That's what I think. Show some courage. It's not going to be an easy game, but these are the games that help you build character, help Yorke and Russell and those guys get an understanding, and Derek King and those guys are understanding of the team they have. And we'll see how it goes. I know there's a lot of people out there who have their issues with how the team is going to play. And we'll see how it goes. Like I said, not to dodge the question. As an analyst, I think Saudi Arabia are the favorites. However, I think this team is definitely capable of getting a result. I say that with tremendous amount of calm, not like a fanboy, just saying we're going to win. Nothing is wrong with being a fanboy. But I say this from a tremendously calm place. We do have a chance. And, we'll have a philosophical discussion after this tournament and evaluate what we saw. But, we're not in the camp. We don't know what Dwight Yorke does and what he thinks. So, I'm sure they will be drawing their conclusions. A lot of people have been talking about the defensive positions and not really happy with how our centre-backs work. A lot of people have been talking about our issues in the midfield. And, the general consensus from discussing with people is that we need some other centre-backs. We also need a midfielder that has the traits of Kevin Miller, that's able to control, speed the game up, slow it down, and has that high footballing IQ, to control those things. So, a lot can happen between now and the World Cup qualifiers. So, we don't know what the scouting is like if they're players. But for now, as a Trinidad Tobago fan, I hope we win. I think it's going to be very tough. I would not be surprised if we lose. But I think we're going to have to see a reaction from this team. And we'll see how it goes. So like I said, if you notice, my voice is very calm because I am. So like I said, tomorrow, folks, head over to EXTV. We'll be doing our live watch along, which you all were tremendous. It was a lot of fun. I know a lot of people have been laughing at some of my reactions. And, I'll try to see if I can have the score lines updated and things like that. So join in tomorrow. I'll be doing that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all those things. It really helps the channel. If you click that little notification bell, if you want to keep up to speed on things, that's the way to do it. When the video pops up, you get a notification. Head over to extvmedia.com. Be sure to follow us on our socials. All these things really help, and it helps us continue to do what we're doing right now. So with that being said, folks, this is Andre Soklal. Let me know what you think about the game tomorrow and, what you think is going to happen. So like I said, folks, good luck to the team. See me at the watch along and good luck to the team.
Hey
Until
everyone,
next
thanks for
time.
watching Extra Time TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe.